Hi everyone, this is Keough and I'm here with what is perhaps the longest training video I've ever produced. On this session you're going to see me do some squats. You're going to see me do 7 sets of 5 repetitions with 340 pounds. This is my third day of the first week of Smolov, the base cycle for squats, and I'm doing all of these without knee wraps. After you see those 7 sets, you're going to see me do 8 sets of 4 repetitions of 255 pounds with a paused bench press. So in total on this day, I'm doing 15 total work sets between squats and bench presses. This session took me roughly 2 hours and 45 minutes to do, and on this session I did 67 lifts, 67 individual repetitions between 79% and 83% of my 1 rep max. Alright, now that I've got that out of the way, I want to tell you all a story. And I have plenty of time in this video because this video is going to run about 8.5 minutes. And so I'm going to go into story mode and I'm going to tell you a little story about my first powerlifting meet. And ultimately this will, the moral, I guess you could say, of the story will sync up with my training for this day. So I'm 22 years old. I believe I was 22 years old, first year of graduate school, and I was thinking of doing my my first powerlifting meet. And this was in the summer of the end of my first year as a graduate student at Iowa, and I wanted to do a meet. There was a meet going on in Rhode Island, in my home state, in June, and this was in 2009, and I wanted to do it, and it was going to be my first powerlifting meet. At that time, I had, I would say, maybe 1,000 to 1,050 pound total. My best squat was a little under 300. My best deadlift was, believe it or not, around 500, and my best bench press in training was, I think, 275 or 280 with a pause. I was about 160 pounds. I cut down to 148 for that meet. I didn't do it properly, so I didn't have a good meet. Okay, I had a poor showing. I ended up squatting 310. This was basically the last time I ever squatted without knee wraps, and went 3 for 3 on the squat, but then bombed out on the bench press. I didn't know how to set my attempts. It was my first meet. I didn't have anybody there to guide me. I didn't have really too many people around me that knew anything about powerlifting, so I was sort of on my own. But that meet was a revelation for me. It was an eye-opener, and not just because I bombed out and I realized that I had to adopt a more sophisticated training protocol than just training by whim in order to get stronger. I got to witness something at that meet that I think changed me and changed my perception of my own ceiling as a lifter. I was competing at 148, and the best lifter from that meet was a lifter by the name of Tom Rosselli, who's a Rhode Island native, and he was competing at 165. And he's, I think, been competing for a while, and that was the meet in which, I guess for him, he did a 1,300 pound total. I don't remember exactly what it was. It might have been 1,305, but he broke 1,300 pounds and won best lifter at that meet. I remember pretty distinctly he squatted around 430, he benched around 330, and he deadlifted in the low 500s. So my apologies if my math isn't perfect, but he did around a 1,300 pound total. I know he broke 1,300 pounds. Anyway, my point is, when I was training in a small commercial gym. I was training by myself. I had found out about powerlifting from a couple of people who I knew, but I didn't know any active powerlifters. I didn't know anything about what these standards were or what the possibilities were for a lighter weight powerlifter outside of my own little gym. And within the confines of my gym, I considered myself to be the strongest lighter weight powerlifter that I knew, because that was my reality. That was what I understood to be true. Within that gym, I was considered to be strong. And within a lot of our gyms, we consider ourselves to be strong. But having such a limited perspective on what is possible for a powerlifter can ultimately suffocate your training, in that you think you are a lot closer to your ceiling than you really are. In other words, when I did this meet, I realized that totaling 1,100 pounds at my body weight was a possibility, that squatting 400 pounds at my body weight was a possibility. I realized that these were distinct possibilities. And 1300 became, for me, the number that I would shoot for the next, for basically the next 3 years. I took a year off from competing after I bombed out of that meet. Then I got back into it slowly. I did my first meet again at 165 pounds and totaled 1229. And then I took 3 more meets. I totaled in the 1200s in 3 meets, and then finally broke past 1300 in my 4th meet at 148. And that meant a lot to me because I achieved a number that I only understood to be possible by experiencing it by watching this other lifter who I found to be so amazing in my first powerlifting meet. Anyway, the moral, I guess, of this story is do everything possible to expand the horizons of what you think you're capable of as a lifter, as an athlete, as a competitor. I have no issue telling people that I'm a drug-free powerlifter and that I've always been drug-free. That's not because I value being a drug-free lifter or I take issue with lifters that choose to use. I feel none of those things. I don't privilege myself because I'm drug-free, and I don't care if somebody else chooses to use. I don't privilege myself because I'm a raw lifter. I don't care if somebody's competing in equipped powerlifting. I don't privilege myself in any way, and I don't set any artificial barriers because I'm a raw lifter or because I'm a natural lifter. I hear a lot of people who are natural lifters say that they've reached their genetic potential or that they're close to their genetic potential, and just remember that whatever ceilings you impose upon yourself are by nature artificial. And you will get much further in this sport if you think highly of yourself than if you're constantly placing artificial limitations or ceilings upon where you think you can go. This advice has worked really well for me. Sometimes my goals are bordering on fantastic. Okay, sometimes they're improbable, but I've been able to get a lot further than I thought I was going to. If you were to ask me 5 years ago if I would ever total over 1,300 pounds in the 148-pound weight class, I would have told you were crazy. And over time, I have gotten to see some pretty amazing things in this sport, things that have inspired me. I've gotten to see some pretty amazing lighter weight lifters. I believe lifters when they tell me that they're doing it drug-free. I'm not skeptical of them. I don't impose any limitations on what is and is not possible drug-free, because I've seen in my own training what's possible, and you can reach an extremely high level if you believe in yourself, if you have what I consider to be unfailing self-belief, which is what I carry with me, and if you refuse to impose any artificial ceilings upon yourself. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story. It's something that has stuck with me over the years, and I've always remembered that experience. Keep checking in. I will have more videos for you soon.